6:20, so why don't you start? For the people who hear, this is Charlie Messing. He's a friend, he's an activist, and he's a wonderful, wonderful singer-songwriter. You're on.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to my house. This is a song from 1809 about the war between the Irish and the British in 1798. We're on the side of the Irish, by the way. Minstrel boy to the war has gone. In the ranks of death you'll find him. His father's sword he has girded on, and his wild harp swings behind him. Land of song, cried warrior bard, though all the earth betray thee, one sword at least our door shall guard, one minstrel harp shall praise thee. The minstrel fell, but the foeman's chain could not drag his proud soul under. The harp he loved never sang again, for he tore its strings asunder, and said, no hand shall sully thee, thy soul of love and bravery. Thy songs were made for the proud and free, they shall ne'er be sung in slavery. Thank you. That's it was a hit for months. Now hits come and go every day, every week. But in 1809, it hung around for a while.
Charlie, I understand that was JFK's favorite song.
Oh, the Minstrel Boy?
Yes.
Great. Yes, it was very popular. I mean, they used to sing it marching. If you ever see the movie The Man Who Would Be King, the lead characters, Sean Connery and Michael Caine, they sing it. A different set of words, though, to some extent. Oh, gosh. You're keeping track of the time, I hope? I forgot to set up the clock. So how many minutes have I to go? 5. Thank you, young sir. Cito Napas.
Liam.
Hi, Leon. This is from Tom Waits. The bats are in the belfry. The dew is on the moor. Where are the arms that held me and pledged her love before? And pledged her love before. I made a golden promise that we would never part. I gave my love a locket, and then I broke her heart. And then I broke her heart. And it's such a sad old feeling. All the fields are soft and green. It's memories that I'm stealing, but you were innocent when you dream. When you dream, you were innocent when you dream. When you dream, you are innocent when you dream. Thank you. Couple
I think
more
we have
minutes.
one more, I think. We
Yes.
have time for one.
Jimmy Rogers, the first country star. I just received your letter. You are down and out, you said. At first I thought I would tell you to travel on the other way. But in my memory lingers all that you once were to me. So I'm gonna give you another chance to show what you can be. A little time you wanna come back home, just hit me line and say nevermore you were wrong. You had your chance to play the game fair. When you left me, sweetheart, you only left a load of care. Oh, but now that you're down, I'm gonna stick by you. If you will only tell me your romance days are through, you will find me here, just like the day left me alone. Any old time you wanna come back home. Thank you, everyone.
Bravo.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. I'll mute myself and put this down.
I hope you'll stay for the meeting. You're definitely a citizen. Okay, so welcome everybody. And thanks to Charlie again. And let me find where my agenda begins. Good. My first task is the introduction of the steering committee members. I'm Barbara McGrew. I saw Patrick Johnson before. Patrick, is your camera back on?
Camera's
So-
back on.
Here you are. Thank you. And is Charlie Giannone here? I haven't seen him yet.
Yes, I just got on.
Oh, good. Can we see you?
I'm working on it.
Okay. And
Okay.
Jessica, who's tremendously helpful to me with tech stuff and letting people in. Molly Claypack, is Molly here? Is Molly here going once, twice? Molly, nope. Oh, Molly Claypack Flanagan, maybe that would help if I said her whole name. Nope.
I don't see her
Okay.
today.
And Tony Reddington is here. And what about, is Kevin not coming tonight? Jessica? No? Okay. And Andrew Champagne is on leave. So those are your steering committee members. The next meeting, which is the second Thursday in April, is April 8th by my calculation. So put that in your calendars and hope to see you all and more of you. Recordings can be found on YouTube or CCTV's website. I'm supposed to do an NPA grant reminder. Applications are due by March 26th. And in your agenda, there's a website, I guess, or an e-address to submit them to. Okay, anything else in the preliminaries except for the public forum is open? 10 minutes. Jessica?
Oh, thank you so much, Barbara. I just wanted to add a little more about the community grants and to make sure that everyone knows that this is how we decide on how we spend the wards 2 and 3 allocations from the city. And so any community member can put in a proposal for something that either benefits the NPA, increases outreach, gets more people involved, gets more people connected to their communities, or is a fun or exciting or useful community event. And so we really encourage community submissions. The application deadline is March 26th, and the next meeting, April 8th, will be very exciting because the applicants will be making presentations about their proposals and we'll be discussing and voting on them as a group. So make sure you get your applications in and they'll be available for review before the April 8th meeting, and join us for that meeting, and I'm sure it'll be a lively discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Any other public forum issues, announcements? If you see me squinting, it's because I can't. Carol. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to say hi. I just got the thing that said, "Oh, it's live." I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna go say hi to everybody." So, hi. I'm gonna go eat dinner, but I just wanted to say I miss you all, and I can't wait till we get back in the building for dinners and all that. I love you.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Just
Other public announcements, issues you want to raise? I can only see 16 at a time. Tony?
Is this a public forum?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think today is an unusual day. For anybody who's been following the news, first, the $1,400 checks, which I guess is of interest to a lot of folks, are supposedly going to hit our checking accounts beginning this weekend. So that's something to look forward to take a look at once in a while to see if there's that's happened. But more importantly, the bill that the president signed today, it's already signed, and he's speaking at 8 o'clock tonight, but you can go, I'm sure, look at it after our meeting. The most important thing to me has been the fact that 20,000 children in Vermont and probably over 1,500 children right here in Burlington, mostly in our 2 wards of the Old North End and the King Maple neighborhood. Over 1,500 children are going to be lifted out of poverty. 26% of our residents live in poverty in Burlington, the second highest in the state. Only Winooski is higher. And the bill provides a monthly payment to families with, again, 1,500 kids that will lift them above the poverty level in Vermont. It's something that we've had stagnant numbers. Nationwide, it's about 10 million. For the state, it's 20,000. This is a monumental change. Certainly the biggest change in poverty since the Johnson administration 30 or 40 years ago. The most important piece of legislation and change in social policy since Obamacare. It's a big deal, as the president once said about Obamacare. So I hope that we get the news out and begin to appreciate that government can actually do something, and it's doing something at this moment. Well, good.
So thank you very much for that report on how this bill has an impact on Burlington, particularly Burlington children. Other announcements or issues to be brought up? I will just announce that I received something from Parks and Recreation saying that you can register for a meeting on the future of Perkins Pier. That's where the ferry comes in, I believe. And it's on March 16th at 7 o'clock. So if you haven't gotten that mailing and you're interested, I'm sure you can go to Parks and Recreation and sign up. I have, because I'm sort of curious about what they've got planned. Anything else? Jessica,
I'll bet anything that it means cutting half the trees around the area and doing a bunch of building. That's just my prediction.
You can ask VJ later. He's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Anything else? Jessica, do you see any other hands?
Let's see. I don't see any other hands. I have another quick announcement, if I could.
Sure.
I just wanted to let everyone know that the month of April is Fair Housing Month. And Fair Housing Month is when we celebrate the passage of the Fair Housing Act in 1968, which enshrined into federal law and also in state law protections against housing discrimination. And so April will be full of events coordinated by CVOEO, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, and the Vermont Department of Libraries, and CEDO, and the Human Rights Commission, and Legal Aid, and a whole slew of other partners who are putting together events to celebrate the passage of the Fair Housing Act and share information about all of our rights and responsibilities, and also to celebrate inclusive communities. And so there'll be events posted on the Fair Housing Month VT.org website. And these will be art activities, workshops, discussion groups, book discussion groups, and all sorts of wonderful ways to celebrate and educate as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm ready to move on to the next agenda items. If I see no more hands, good. What is next? As most of you probably know, to get permission to build, developers have to come before the NPA and present their projects. So we have tonight two presentations, one from Grace Amao from Nedde Real Estate about a 50-unit building at 77 Pine Street, including affordable rental apartments and a public restroom. Yay. Okay, is Grace here? Hi, Grace.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My employer and another part of this presentation, Doug Nedde, is trying to join this meeting, and I'm hoping for help. He seems to, for some reason, not be. He's joined without a passcode, and I hadn't seen that there was a passcode. I'm wondering if anybody is able to help me troubleshoot for him.
Does he have the Zoom link on the agenda to click?
He does. He has a Zoom link.
Can I jump in a second? I had this problem today. I had to reload my Zoom completely uninstall it and reinstall it in order to overcome the problem with that message about the passcode. Might be his problem.
On the letter with the passcode, with the Zoom address, excuse me, the Zoom link, right underneath that on the page was the code to get in. So if you just highlighted that and pressed copy, you could, once it opens and asks for it, you could paste it right in without having to memorize it. So it should be easy to get in.
Yeah, there is no code to get into the meeting.
Not that one? Oh, you don't have that one?
No.
The
No,
letter that,
I just clicked on the link. That was it.
yeah, let's see.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well,
Webinar.
I think there's a phone number you could try calling in.
Yeah, Grace?
yeah, I'm,
Or I-
yes.
And Barbara, maybe we could have the
I-
second presentation first while Doug tries to get in.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll do that. Is Don Welch here?
Oh, and I think John Light and Nate
Yeah,
Dace will be here.
okay.
Yeah, hi
I'm so-
everyone. Nate Dejes here. When the time's right, I'll be leading that presentation.
Okay.
We can
Nate.
also,
So you
okay,
talking
we'll go.
about 158 South Champlain?
Sure. Are you ready for me to present on the project?
Go ahead with that. While Grace's partner tries to get on the call. I have Don Welch, but
Yes, he's part of the team. He couldn't make it. He has another meeting conflict, but I'm the project manager, so I can certainly walk us through.
Okay, so this is Nathan from Don Welch Architecture. It's a 30-unit building at 158 South Champlain. You're on.
Okay, great. So I'll just give everyone a brief introduction to the project. So I'm Nate Dejes. I'm part of the development team for the project. This is a newly acquired site for us. It's located on South Champlain Street between Main and King. It's just down the street from August 1st Bakery. It's basically a vacant site right now. For those that drive by it, it's a very narrow site. It's easy to miss, but it's kind of in between two buildings there. The site, many folks might know the site that it's had a challenging history. It's had many commercial and industrial uses in the past, and it's sat vacant for the better part of the last decade with some of these brownfield challenges. So with that, our team looked at the site. Our team's had quite a bit of experience with contaminated sites. So we developed a plan that we think could clean up the site and bring some new housing to the city of Burlington. So Barbara, are our renderings on here somewhere, or would we have to share screen?
I think you'll have to share screen.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, it says I'm disabled from.
I'm going to make you a co-host right now, and then you should be able to share your screen.
Great, thank you. So we have several different renderings, but I'll just to give everyone a kind of a brief overview of the project and kind of a high level view, I'll just show a couple of these 3D renderings. So this is the view of the new building from South Champlain Street, looking southwest. And that would be the new front of the building. To the right is the historic Blinn House, and then just out of view to the right would be August 1st Bakery. So the new building would have roughly 30 housing units. The building would consist of either for sale or for rent housing. We're still working that out. The building's 5 stories tall, which is well within the F5 district's allowed height. And we plan on achieving a high energy efficiency level with this project. Aside from taking a look at some of the other elevations, this rendering kind of speaks for itself as far as scale and size. We're still working out the specifics on the exterior. We're excited to bring bring a nice new building to this neighborhood. And the most exciting piece to me, not only to bring more housing to Burlington, is that we think we're able to clean up this site. And I guess I will talk just a little bit more about that piece. We have a team put together with VHB that's been working closely with the DEC, and it's been a very successful process so far. We feel very confident we can clean up this entire footprint of the site and have a building built, and then have kind of a clean bill of health moving forward. So that's kind of the quick outline. Happy to field any questions that people may have.
Okay, if you can stop the screen share, that'll allow me to call on people. I can't see them otherwise. Thank you. Okay, questions. Stephen. Unmute yourself.
Yes. So
Good.
hi. It's always great to hear about people wanting to build housing. I'm thinking that's the same stretch of South Champlain where the pocket park is. Is that correct?
It is a block further north, I believe. If it's, yeah, it's a block further north.
Okay. Okay. And right now it's an empty lot?
It's completely vacant right now. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've seen a
Tony,
park on that block.
Tony?
The little thing, it's just like as big as a backyard, but there's something, or has been something, on that block itself.
Just a quick question. The number of units that are going to be what they call inclusionary zoning or IZ units, usually about 15%, and that means a one bedroom would go for about $1,200 a month, is I think is roughly the current rent. Are any of those units required in your development?
We're still working through with Todd and the city on exactly what our affordable housing mix is going to look like. You know, we will be meeting the code. We're just not sure exactly what that mix would look like at this point.
Because it could be owner or rental. I understand.
Correct. Yep.
Roughly what percent, again, what percentage would be involved, or do you know that yet?
I don't think we're quite there yet. I think it's in the neighborhood of 15 to 20%, but we're still working through, you know, how that's going to look with appraised values and that stuff with the city's assessor office.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Barbara, Dahlia has her hand up.
Go ahead, Dahlia.
You're on mute.
You're still muted.
You are correct. Thank you, everyone. I live right next door to the site in the historic Glen House. What is the timeline? I know you're asking for permission right now. What is the remediation going to look like? What is the planned hours for that remediation? And what is the build timeframe? Thank you.
Sure. So we're still pretty early in the process, hoping to go to DRB in the next month or so. The earliest we would break ground on the new project would be right around January of 2022, so a little under a year from now. And the remediation is actually pretty straightforward, actually. What we do with the soils is more complicated and more costly, but really it's just a matter of excavating and sampling and knowing what the soils are and then removing them. So it's not going to look that much different than any other project from an outsider's view.
Anybody else, Jessica? Okay, I have a few questions myself. On that remediation, it's done in a way that keeps the neighbors safe from the contamination, I assume, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our team will put together a plan that protects everyone, including the workers. The type of contamination allows for the handling to not be that dangerous. I mean, there's certain precautions, but it's a site that certainly for the neighbors, there's not much to worry about. But again, our professional consultants will develop a plan for that.
Okay, and two more quick questions. I know you're not now required to provide parking under the ordinance, but are you planning to? That's one question. And also, what's on the ground floor? Is it amenities? Is it apartments or amenities for the residents or retail?
Yeah, great question. The lot is really small, so we can't quite fit in commercial space, which we would have liked to, but the ground floor street facing side is lobby and amenity space, bike storage, kind of a little gathering area. So it has a nice presence on the street. Behind that is parking. We have 2 levels of parking. Right now we're around 42. It's fluctuating as we kind of refine the design, 42 spaces to 30 to 32 units. So we have what we feel is a nice balance. We know we'll have right around 1 to 1.1 spaces per unit for the building.
Thank you.
Barbara, Patrick has a question and then Stephen.
So,
Okay. Patrick,
what is the lot coverage of that? It looks pretty close to 100%. And then what about stormwater runoff? You're pretty close to the lake there.
Yeah, so we also have VHB, Peter Smyer of VHB working through stormwater design with DPW and folks from there, which there are pretty stringent requirements with the city, which we will certainly be meeting. So that design's not fully worked through, but we will have quite a bit of storage on site. Because it's almost, as you mentioned, it's not quite 100% build out, it's probably in the neighborhood of 80%. But because it's such a large build out, most of our water is all clean roof water. So it allows for a little bit of a different stormwater approach. It allows us to do more of the storage side than the treatment side. But again, that's being worked through. It's probably, I'd say 75% complete, that design phase. And we've got what we think is a pretty good solution for that.
okay, thank you. And Stephen, you have another question?
Yes, please. So from the illustration, it looks like a very bulky building. And you did just mention, it seems you're planning to use 100% of the footprint. I'm concerned that means that in the future, if somebody wants to build a building next door, they're going to have to use some of their footprint to provide space between the buildings, or else the buildings are going to be kissing up against each other. I don't know if it seems like a fair thing to do to have a building that is so full to the space that it occupies.
Yeah, I think the building actually isn't right to the property line. The building on the north side sits 12 feet off the property line and about 8 to 10 feet everywhere else. So it is actually set off a decent amount. And the form-based code in this district does, I think the max setback is 12 feet. So we're kind of right in that neighborhood that the form-based code is looking for. And we're also working with our immediate neighbors to just make sure we're doing what we can, have the building kind of work best with what their future plans may be as well.
Okay, well, I certainly advocate for urbanization, concentration of population in the downtown, and that's something that your project accomplishes. It does seem a little bit bulky for the neighborhood, but it's not a major objection, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very fair comment, and we're still refining those facade drawings, and there may be some things we can do to soften and maybe step that approach a little bit. Certainly understand that viewpoint.
Thank you. I see a Jacob with his hand up.
Yeah, hi. Hey, sorry I'm a little bit late. I didn't get to see the pictures of it. But one thing I would advocate for is go for some crazy colors. Don't just do gray, okay? You have license from me at least to do some crazy colors. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, just more a comment perhaps. As you know, that location, in fact, everything roughly from Pearl Street down to Maple Street is a designated low-income area for development in Vermont and designated by the governor. We have 10% of our households that live below the poverty level. We have 1,000 on the waiting list for the Burlington Housing Authority for assisted housing, of which none of the units, it's conceivable that perhaps a handful of units could be leased under a affordable housing assistance. But in fact, we have a much greater need for low-income housing than we do for more upper income. And I'm not criticizing. I think the well-to-do deserve housing too, but this project will do very little for the needs of most of the residents in the King Maple neighborhood.
Yeah. Nobody.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody else?
Got one.
Yeah, Stephen, Carrie?
It's hard for
Yes,
me to see.
I just know that you mentioned that the for sale for rent percentage in the new building is under discussion. And I'm wondering where you envision that discussion is going to end up. How many of these units will be owned? How many will be perpetually rented?
Yeah, great question. I would say at this point, our goal is for this to be a for sale project. Lot of just things to work through on that, but that's our goal, is for the entire project to be a for sale project.
And do you know how much the apartments would go for potentially? A range?
Not really. I mean, it is an expensive build out, so there would be some fairly expensive units that we would need to offset that cost. But obviously our mix would work with Burlington's affordable housing ordinance and the options that we have there. We are expecting some of our upper floor units to be some fairly expensive units, and then kind of working through the mix that works with the building.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Barbara, Charlie has got a question.
Charlie Messing?
Yeah, it just, it may seem like idle kind of thing, but it's very squared off. The box has been used, bulky has been used. Is there any way to round off the corners? It would be such a relief compared to French Freeman and Freeman, whatever that company is that does identical buildings all over town. I mean, you know, a little decoration, maybe just rounding off the corner at the roof line would be really refreshing. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, as you're progressing these projects, the look of the building is always kind of one of the last things that we do, and that's going to be our focus over the next few months, is to really tailor that design. We have a design team too that hasn't really touched the project yet, and I'm sure that they'll bring some exciting features. But I think even just myself looking at it, I'm seeing that we could add some parapets in a few spots, and some roof overhangs, and the front needs some work. So totally understand that viewpoint, and we're not done by any means refining that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Other questions?
And Barbara, it's just about time to move on to the second presentation.
Right. I just, you know, if there's one more question, I would take it, but doesn't seem to be. Nathan, thank you. Good luck with your project.
Yeah, thanks everyone so much. Really appreciate it, and nice meeting you.
Okay, so back to Grace. How are things going? Please unmute him.
Yes, things are good. Things are good. Doug is with us, and so we have a 4-person team here tonight.
Okay, so we have 20 minutes for the presentation and Q&A, so use that any way you want.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Hi, I think I'll start. My name is Doug Nedde, and I'm the owner of 79 Pine Street. This is the second phase of what I call the People's United Bank project. The first phase, as you might recall, is developing 50 apartments and basically purposing or rebuilding the north side of 77 Pine Street into office space for People's United Bank. So on this project, 79 Pine Street, and I don't know if there's a site map that you can put up, Grace.
Yes, could I please have screen share, and then I will be able to cast some images?
It's a project that I'm really excited about. It's an urban infill project, much like Nate's. It's going to be a green project. It's going to have solar. It's going to have 30 or so electric car charging stations. It's going to be a very energy efficient building with electric heat pumps. We're going to be having chambers on our site for storing stormwater, and I just think it's a good urban infill project. These will be apartments. There's going to be 49 of them. I am building a 9-story building. The building is really quite skinny. It's about 50. Well, it's 74 feet by 76 feet.
Wow.
And we zinged right along to the picture. So it's a skinny, what I think is a really elegant building. And I've tried to add a lot of green, not only to the construction, but adding some green to the upper levels with trees and other shrubbery. And I'm really trying to build something that's really quite beautiful. And luckily, I've hired a talented architect, Greg Gossens, is going to talk a little bit more about it. But this is a project that will have 20% affordable. We have some on-site parking, which I mentioned, and we'll be sharing some other infrastructure of the existing project. I guess I've kind of given the summary. I have our civil engineer and our architect to talk a little bit about the site and the building. And I guess we can do questions at the very end, or how would you like to do that?
Why don't you leave some time for questions? Go through your presentation and then leave some time for questions.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. Dave Marshall here. I'm the civil engineer for the project, and what's up on screen right now is a general map of the downtown area, and the red represents the site of the proposed building. And Grace, can you do me the favor of perhaps putting your cursor on top of Pine Street so everybody can understand Pine Street as it runs north-south, and then College Street, that is right there. So, whoops, we're at the intersection, just north of the intersection of College Street and Pine Street. Just to the north of this particular site is the Big Dig, Burlington style, relative to the city center project. And as Doug mentioned earlier, as you move south from there is the 77 Pine Street building. That's the People's United Bank, where a portion of that building is being renovated for residential use. So this particular building sits right in between two of the large buildings. The one on the south side, the big white top building just to the south, is 1 Burlington Square, and that building was just rebuilt recently. Perhaps now is a good time to go to the landscaping plan if we can, Grace. And what we want to do is recognize, just dragging from the thoughts of the other picture, other site plan, is that, again, being located within the downtown area, it's a great walkable community. And again, what we're trying to do is bring people into this particular area to be able to better experience that. This particular site plan, north again, is straight up and down, and Pine Street is off on the right-hand side. Up in the top portion of this drawing is the 77 Pine Street building. That's the existing People's United Bank facility, and the gray rectangle on the bottom of the drawing represents the 1 Burlington Square building, cut off, mind you, but nonetheless, this particular facility building will fit in between the two. The form-based zoning, as Nate made mention to, does require that these big facilities be located closer to the street. It's intended to create a communication between the building and the street itself. What we've tried to do in the remaining areas is create some of the green space and restore some of the street trees that are along this particular area. We have a combination of both underground parking as well as surface parking, and some of the solar will be placed on top of the carport type of roof, or some of that surface parking on the left side of the proposed building. Doug did make mention, as far as our stormwater management, we're taking advantage of the sandy soils on the site and doing 100% infiltration of all the stormwater runoff from this particular area back into the ground. In fact, we actually partnered with the city on using that same facility to pick up runoff from the Pine Street area, only because in the big picture, the city was looking to minimize flows that ultimately end up in the bay. And this was another means of basically taking some of that impervious surface runoff and putting it back in the ground as if it was occurring 200 years ago. So that's the quick take on the civil site end of things. And perhaps now I can introduce Greg Gossens, the architect for the project.
Great. So great segue to the next slide, please. So hello, folks. My name is Greg Gossens. I'm GBA Architects, and pleased to get your input on this project. It's a great one. So here's a rendering looking up Pine Street. And you can see basically we're following the form-based code. We have step backs at the 6th floor and then another step back up at the penthouse level, the 9th floor. We tried to integrate landscaping both at the ground level and in the upper levels, as you can see, which Doug mentioned before. And basically we wanted a building that really animated and enlivened the street. So you can see we articulated the corners with glass. On the lower level, we have the fitness room, the main lobby, a place for hopefully commission an artist to do a mural that wraps around the corner into the lobby area, accented with some wood panels, which we can see on the next slide a little bit better. And then there's a public restroom off of that kind of recessed entry area. We're using brick with various textures. You can see kind of a striated texture and just a regular running bod texture, and then pewter colored metal panels besides the black windows, black fiberglass windows. So can we go to the next slide, please, Grace? So there's looking down Pine Street at the main lobby, and you can see there the wood accent at the lobby level, the mural wall down right at the lobby, and we're taking both the wood accents and the mural and drawing them into the building. So we basically want to have a building that kind of reflects the creative vibe of Burlington and have a lively street presence where the building is animated. When you see this building, it's not just going to be a boxy bulk. It's going to be an animated building that will really, hopefully, contribute to the street life of Burlington.
Can I ask something just about the location?
Charlie, let them finish and then ask, okay? Otherwise, if people start, we'll never get through it.
Yeah, I don't have an idea.
Okay. Well, I'll finish up. Basically, as Doug mentioned, it's going to be a highly energy efficient building. It's all electric for HVAC. We have our excellent thermal envelope. We're going for very tight air sealing, which is what really moves the needle when you get into energy savings. And we have all of those PV panels up on the carport roof. So we're really looking for a building that's highly sustainable. So I'm ready for questions.
Okay, great. Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, it does look nice compared to the buildings I've seen built around here lately. It's really nice. Now this is replacing, I believe, a gigantic multiple drive-in spot for the bank, right? It's just kind of a ramp, a series of 3.5 ramps. This is replacing that. I mean, it's on the spot that is now ramps for the drive-up bank.
That's correct.
Right next to it. Yes, and it won't have to do much to look better than it looks now.
We agree.
So yeah, it's going to look much better.
Thanks.
Tony?
I'm pro-developer, and I love to see housing built. And so given that, it's clear that this is people sort of wonder why we have these projects like the hole in the ground and these two housing projects suddenly turn up. They obviously are not going to serve anybody who's on the waiting list for assisted housing. And whether you're talking about rentals at $1,200 a month or condos at and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The point I'm making is this, is that the mall, the hole in the ground, these two projects are in what's called an opportunity zone. It's a tax write-off scheme of the Trump administration. It's a very effective one that allows people to shelter capital gains taxes so they don't have to pay taxes at all if the project is economically successful and they leave the money there for 10 years. The developers know this. This is a good thing because it does get activity going in a low income area. But it really is the least effective in terms of providing jobs and providing, obviously not providing any housing for anybody on the waiting list of the Burlington Housing Authority. So in that sense, it's a little disappointing. We can't win all the time. Maybe there'll be some kind of project that will come along that will actually provide some jobs and some opportunities for those who live in the King Maple and the Old North End. But this, as a tax policy, it's not working very well here in Burlington.
Thank you, Tony. Do you have a question?
Oh, it was a comment.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions?
Stephen has a question.
Okay, Stephen, go.
Yeah, hi. Very glad to see that wasted lot have a plan for it. I am concerned about the waste of most of the lot on carports and solar panels. It does seem like you could make the building more narrow or else just make it larger and use the property that you have. Stick the carports underneath the building instead of exposing them to the sky. It's a very wasteful way of using urban land. Otherwise, I have to follow on Tony's coattails and say we really, really need affordable housing. And I think it's a social responsibility that you carry to actually provide housing that people can afford, in addition to providing housing to the wealthy clients that provide your profits.
Thank you, Stephen. Other questions? What do you see, Jessica?
Oh, I see the other Stephen. Stephen Carey
Yes.
has his hand up.
Okay, Stephen Carey.
Yes, I did hear you mention 20% affordable housing units projected, and that would be about 10 if you're talking 49 apartments. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so, but the project is exclusively for rentals and no owner occupied. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's all rental.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Other? I always have questions. I look at People's United Bank, which I guess it's about to change soon because somebody bought them. So I see the outside of the construction going on. So this building, as I understand it, then would be directly almost behind the Free Press building, 100 Bank Street, right?
Well, this building will be right on Pine Street, and this building be a little bit south of where People's is right now, and a little bit north, directly north of ICV's building, the dark one on the corner. We call it the Darth Vader building, but you might have other names for it.
Oh,
but, so it's right on Pine Street, and it's just south of the project we're working on right now, and it's just north of the ICV building. And the gentleman who described it, where we're basically building this building where the access is for the drive-through. There's a 3-bay drive-through there currently, which will be demolished, and a smaller 1-bay or 2-bay drive-through will be built closer to the bank building, and that provides us a little bit of land. Again, where it's not a big building, it's 76 feet wide, and it gives us a little bit of land to build this building.
And how tall?
It's 104 feet. The form base the code allows 105, and we're a bit below that.
Okay, and who will maintain the public restroom?
We will. Nedde Real Estate will be the property manager, and we'll be maintaining all the grounds and the whole both these
Wow, and boy, is that ever needed. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
So Barbara, there's a question from Solveig and then Tony.
Okay, Solveig.
Hi there. I don't know why my camera's not working, but I'm going to talk. What is the plan for the move-in loading dock arrangements for tenants to move in and out?
There's loading. There's a loading loading area from the back of the building, which would be a west approach.
So you'd be coming in off College Street.
So there would be some sort of elevator available for people moving in from the back.
Yes, it's fully accessible from the rear. It's also accessible from Pine Street, the elevator. But the loading area is from the back, yes.
One thing that didn't show up very clearly is that that site slopes. So there's a below building parking area that's accessed from the west, as Grace just mentioned, that doesn't have any presence on Pine Street, but that's covered parking and it's elevated, so people could go in there, move totally undercover, get on the elevator and go up to their apartment.
Tony, you have a question?
Really a comment about the People's United building. I believe that it's been under construction now for at least a year and a half, and they're actually building residential units on the upper floors. I'm not sure of the number of them. So that just mentioned that's also housing. Apparently there was enough to keep the bank didn't need all that space in the upper floors. Second thing is, I want to be clear that, I've applied for one of those units at the Hole in the Ground 3 or 4 years ago, one of the affordables. And, so that I'm not against those units or that kind of housing located in downtown. The problem is that none of those units are going to be serving the needs of the large number of existing folks who live in these two neighborhoods.
Okay, thanks. I'm still a little confused. Where is this building in relationship to the Key Bank kiosk on Pine and College?
It's right across Pine Street. So it's on the west side of Pine Street. If you were standing at the Key Bank kiosk and you were looking toward the lake, the building would be, you'd be looking at the building.
Oh, I thought you'd be looking at the Darth Vader building. It's behind the Darth.
Sorry, it is north of the Darth Vader building.
North of the Darth Vader. Okay, thank you.
If we're going to call it that, yeah.
Okay. And it's 8 stories tall, basically, right?
It's 9.
9 stories.
9 stories.
Thank you.
Is it about the height of the Free Press building? Right there at the end of Pine?
Doug is talking through my phone here because he was having connection issues. So the Free Press building is, about 10 feet taller than our building.
Thank you.
And when do you take this to the Development Review Board? I can't hear.
Okay, well, we're planning to apply in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
And Barbara, I think there's one more question from Christy.
Christy Delphia, go ahead.
I'm just curious, back in the 80s, when they built new buildings and wanted to put housing in them, the requirements used to be at least 32% of that building needed to be affordable housing. When did those requirements change and now only allowed to have 15 or 20% as opposed to 32?
Don't know.
I unfortunately don't have dates for that information.
I don't know, Christy.
We'll
That would
find
be
out for
interesting
you.
to find out. That would be cool.
I believe the mayor would like to get rid of those requirements altogether, but that's another story.
Oh, well, yeah. We quite well know exactly how he feels about affordable housing for low-income people. He's
Okay, anyway, I'm gonna move on unless there is another question. Jessica, yourself.
Oh, Barbara, I wanted to ask, in between these next two items, if we could have a time for just a very quick announcement from Janet Karskadden from Community Dinner. She arrived a little late for community announcements, but she has something very exciting to share about next month's meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks everyone. I'll be pretty quick. So we've been on hiatus for about a year. We miss seeing all of you in person and preparing that community meal at the event space. So in April, we decided to do a takeout meal. And we partnered with Mulu from Mulu's Ethiopian Eritrean Kitchen and Catering, and she is going to prepare a meal for us, and we will be serving it out of the outside of the front door as pickup and as takeout. So Mulu's been doing some meals once a month, and that's been very popular, highly successful. She's the person who has been preparing the injera for our Ethiopian dinners that we've had over the past several years. So it'll be a little different, but it might be a nice way to start to sort of tiptoe our way back into offering something that helps to support the NPA. The website, onecommunitydinner.weebly.com, has the information about the meal and of how you could purchase a ticket. So the dinner is $20, but there are some subsidized meals in there. We're asking if people can help us with that by making a donation to help to buy a meal for a neighbor. That would be wonderful. And there's a ticket site that you can pre-order a meal on. It is live now. And so we'll be doing that for April to help to support the NPA. And then stay tuned for perhaps doing something else in May, and maybe we'll be outside at some point. But we're watching COVID very closely. So more information on our website, and we can put that up in the comments of the website for the community dinner. But
Thank you, Janet. Stay there for a second. I just want to, I didn't feel I had closure with Grace and her team.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's my fault. No, it's not your fault at all. Is there anything else, Grace, you or the people you're with want to say about the project?
I am finished. I think, Doug, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Okay.
Exactly. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you very
time.
much for your presentation, and good luck.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, back to you, Janet. Where is the pickup?
The pickup will be outside the event hall at the 20 Allen Street, where we usually have the NPA. So we'll have a table set outside. You'll be able to select a pickup time. They're staggered by 15 minutes when you get your ticket, and so that we can, keep some distance with folks. And there are a limited number of meals available. So I'd encourage you, if you think you'd like to do it, to buy your ticket in advance, and we'll help to, support Mulu, who has a wonderful local business, and also the NPA.
Charlie?
Hello, Charlie G here. So I have a question for Janet. So are you interested in filing an application for any funding at all this year? I sent you the updated, and you probably saw that most of about half of our money is still available.
Yeah, I will be submitting something. I've just been very, very, very busy, but I will be submitting something to you. Yes.
So did you see the thing that I sent you to give you an idea of how much money is available?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jen. And thank you, Charlie.
Yes.
I'm ready to move on if you are.
Can you just tell us again where to buy those tickets, or how to?
I'll put it up. Maybe we can put it in the chat. It's onecommunitydinner.weebly.com. That's the One Community Dinner website, and there's a link on that website. It will take you to an Eventbrite site that you can buy your tickets.
I'll put it in the agenda, and you can.
Maybe somebody can push it out. I know I don't have the chat on my screen.
Well, I haven't put it in there yet.
And when is this going to be?
It doesn't exist.
April 8th. Oh, there's no chat. Okay. April 8th.
Okay, and hopefully you'll be advertising at other places as well.
Yes, it will go up on our, we have a social media post on our Facebook page and Instagram, and any other way that you guys want to, we can put it on Front Porch Forum as well.
I think that would.
Our usual advertising, yeah, we'll put it out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome.
We're actually on schedule, and the next thing on the agenda is BJ for spring tree planting in wards 2 and 3 and how we can get involved. Is Vijay here?
I am here, Barbara, and thank you. And I'll try to keep you on schedule. Can you all hear me well?
Yes, and we can see you too.
Lucky you. My name is Vijay Comai. I'm the city arborist. I've been with the city for the last 3 years. And I'm really happy tonight to be able to have a few minutes to talk to you about our tree planting plans in wards 2 and 3 this spring. This spring, we will be planting a little over 230 trees in wards 2 and 3. And to give you a little background, about 12 to 15 years ago, the city had a first of a kind urban canopy tree study done on the city by the Spatial Analysis Lab at UVM. And what they did was they did a flyover of the city with drones using a LiDAR high-tech system, and they mapped out the percentage of land area in Burlington that is covered by tree canopy, as seen from the air. And what they found at that time was that Burlington had a tree canopy coverage of about 40%, which is very high for communities of our size comparatively around the nation. We recently had them update this study 10 years after they did the first study, and we got the results back a couple of years ago. And their technology has gotten even better. And what they showed over that 10-year period was there was actually a 4% increase in the canopy coverage over those 10 years. So now we're at about 44%. This is really bucking the trend nationwide, where many, many communities are significantly seeing canopy loss in their cities. So the interesting thing about this information is they broke it down and they actually were able to show us by ward what the relative canopy coverage is in each ward. And with that information, we found that wards 2 and 3 have the lowest percentage of canopy coverage in the city. A couple of reasons for that. One, obviously, is we don't have the wooded areas in that area of the city that you have in the New North End, where you have Leddy Park Woods and Ethan Allen Park and so forth. And you don't have the larger lots that you have for housing lots in the New North End or the South End or even the Hill section, where you have a lot of trees on private property. You know, the houses, excuse me, for the most part in wards 2 and 3 are very close together, small backyards, not a lot of room for trees on private property. So in wanting to increase the canopy in wards 2 and 3, we identified all viable planting sites within the city right-of-way throughout wards 2 and 3, meaning within the green belt between the sidewalk and the road. There are trees on many streets, but there are gaps on many streets. And so we identified all these areas using our inventory system, and then we went out and checked them on the ground, on foot, and identified all these areas, chose trees, selected trees, ordered the trees, and they will be coming in this spring, and we will be doing this mass planting in wards 2 and 3. I provided Jess with a list of all the available planting sites, which I think she's going to make available to you, or maybe she's sharing it now. We're really excited about this effort. You know, the hope would be if we're not restricted by COVID and gatherings would be to, in some of these areas where there's a higher concentration of trees being planted, to engage some of the local residents to come out and help our crew plant. We won't know until, probably within a couple weeks of when we actually do this. So, but I wanted to alert you all to this because sometime in early April, in the next few weeks, you may see markings out on the green belt, on the grass, as well as a white hash mark on the curb, because we have to identify the planting sites so that all the utilities that can then come along, and we have the sites dig safe. So they mark where the underground utilities are, water lines, and so forth, so we know there's no conflict. And then we would come back about a week to 10 days prior to planting and remove the sod at each planting site. We'll cut a circle and we'll just skim off the sod and we'll take that to compost it. And then sometime probably in the final week of April and into the first week of May, we'll be completing the planting in all these areas. We will stake, water, and mulch each tree at the time of planting. We will attach one of the green watering bags that have become a common sight throughout the city the last couple years around each of the trees, and our crews will be making the rounds watering. You as residents can help us out if some of these trees get planted right in front of your house and you would like to take on the watering and filling of the bag once a week. It would certainly help us a great deal, and you could contact me directly and let me know what trees you'd like to be responsible for. And it's our hope too that you'll also keep an eye on the trees and watch for vandalism and take some pride in what we're doing here and hopefully help us protect these trees. We do lose a number of new trees every year to vandalism. I can't quite understand it. We had some beautiful young trees broken off on Upper College Street this past winter, and that's very frustrating. So, hopefully we can have some community engagement, but you will be seeing us out there, and we're really excited about this. So if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a quick question. So I live on Green Street, and you guys planted 100% Celtis occidentalis on the street, which turned out to be a really hackberry, which turns out to be a really bad idea because all the flies that hackberry attract, the hackberry fly actually, not to mention it's sort of a monocrop. So as the trees reach 35 years, they're all going to have to go at once, and then we won't be such a green street on Green Street. So I'm sort of hoping you'll not plant so many of those hackberries, because when you put a lot of hackberries together, you get a lot of hackberry flies or Celtis occidentalis.
Okay, so I think if I remember correctly, on Green Street, it's actually a lot of ash on that street. The larger trees are ash on the east side of that street. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they're. What you should know is we are making a concerted effort in our plantings moving forward to greatly diversify what we're planting. We are no longer planting one whole side of a street with the same species of trees. And in fact, the plantings in wards 2 and 3 this spring will include about 25 different species or varieties within the species. So, in some areas, we're very limited on what we can use because we have overhead utilities. So we can't plant trees that grow to a mature size of 40 and 50 feet. We have to use smaller statured trees. And you have to understand too, the urban environment's a very difficult one for trees. So we have to contend with road salt and soil compaction and high heat, and the number of species that will withstand all those conditions and can be expected to grow for any amount of time is fairly limited. So we do our best to diversify, but that's a good point. We don't put all our eggs in one basket anymore. Those of you who are old enough to remember when all the elms started dying around Burlington, now we're dealing with, a lot of ash trees around the city that are going to succumb to emerald ash borer, and we've been trying to be proactive in planting no new trees in and amongst those ash. So when they have to come down, we'll already have replacements in place. So very good point about diversity, for sure.
Thank you. I see Jacob and then Greg.
Hey, just following up on that ash part, are any of these planned to be interspersed with ash, or are these just open spots? I live on La Fountain, and I know we've got a couple of big ash on our street.
That's a good question, Jacob. All the sites we'll be planning this spring are currently open sites. But what we did 2 years ago was we identified where all the ash are in the city. And whether you've noticed this or not, in the areas where we had our highest concentration of ash, several areas in the city where there was actually like one whole side of a street or both sides of a street, where space allowed, we've already gone in and planted replacement trees in and amongst the ash. And our hope is to get several years of growth out of them. And again, we used a diversity of species so that by time we have to start removing ash, we've already got our replacements in place. We have now planted replacements for over 50% of our greenbelt ash throughout the city. Not every place there's an ash is there room to plant a new tree nearby at this point without removing the ash first. But there are still about 40 sites where we can do that. I have that list, and that's going to be part of our planting for the fall. And I think, but don't quote me, don't count on this for sure, but I think La Fountain Street may be one of those areas. So, you know, it's our goal to replace tree for tree where we can, and hopefully get trees in the ground before we have to remove any ash.
Okay, thank you. I see Greg and then Jeannie.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I'm fully supportive of having more street trees, and I'm glad you're going to have some diversity in the species. I just wanted to make one suggestion, and that is, in addition to reaching out at the NPA meetings like you're doing here, if you haven't already, it'd be good to do maybe direct mailings or leave letters on people's doors so that they know that this is going to be happening in front of their house or on their street, and they maybe have a better understanding of what the green belt is, that the city owns it and the city is going to be putting in these trees and maintaining them. But of course, it'd be nice if they'd like to help out. So that's just my suggestion.
That is a good point. We will use all our social media platforms through Parks and Recreation to get the word out, Facebook and Twitter, and we'll do the front porch forum thing, and you'll be hearing a lot about it. So we will have some press releases as well. So it was my hope by contacting this group that you have access to emails or some sort of listserv for residents in wards 2 and 3 and get the word out that way as well.
I don't think we do, but that's okay. Jeannie?
I am really excited to hear this. I worked very closely with Warren Spinner, your predecessor. Is that what we call Warren? And well, on that last note, one thing I knew I had to do was get people to sign on to being okay with having a tree outside of their property, because as you probably know, as a homeowner, you're responsible for what is happening in your green belt. Or maybe this is another conversation, but time out for now. I also know that there were lots of places that I was so hoping we could plant trees, especially on Cedar between Rose and North Champlain, but those places were deemed, and I can see on that map that Jess showed, it looks like it's going to happen, but those places were deemed not necessarily viable because the infrastructure of the curbs, and I'm talking about, we still have slate curbs from who knows, like the 50s, maybe earlier. And the where the green belt stops and where the road starts is a very, suggested question, right? So, you got a wide car, you might just like park a little bit up on that curb, which is actually a slight slope at this point. And with all of that in mind, I also want to let you know the corner of Cedar and Rose, and Cedar goes around Rose down to North Champlain, in between the fountain. There's a lot of water stuff going on, a lot of traffic issues going on, and we're really looking for long-term remedies to deal with not just traffic calming and waste runoff, and also implementing more anything green. And of course, trees are on the radar. So what I am saying is, I believe there are different hubs of our community that are looking to mitigate several things that include tree planting, and it's an overarching goal. And I don't want to have a tree planted. Barbara, 2 seconds. I don't want to have a tree get planted and then we have to mitigate how we're going to solve runoff, how we're going to solve traffic stuff later. Like, where is that, the infrastructure stuff going to communicate and come up with like a real plan? So I hope you email me separately. I've actually emailed you about other stuff before. You've got my email. I really hope that we like make a real plan to move forward, and know that I will bring a bucket load of volunteers to make it happen.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Yes, Stephen Carey.
Hi, Vince. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you so much for your work around town. I've seen people in action. They do an incredible job, like pruning trees that needed to be pruned. Recently, there was one that was removed outside. I live on the corner of Elmwood and Spring, and there was a linden tree that had finally met its end this past year, and it was cut. And then I was told that the stump would be grounded. So I think that's part of the plan, probably to grind the stump and then put the new tree right where that one was. Is that the case?
Typically, even if we grind the stump, the new tree does not go directly in the exact same spot, because the grinding can't go low enough to remove enough roots to get it in there. What I will tell you briefly about stump grinding is we don't own our own stump grinding equipment, and budgets being what they are right now, we're kind of waiting until we get a backlog of them, and then we sub it out to a private company to do it, and it's more cost effective that way. So
yeah, the guys told me that mentioned something about that. Just the idea that it will be eventually ground down because there's mold and mushrooms and things to grow in there. And then I had another question about, I do remember the stump. I remember that I've seen the beautiful photos of Burlington when the elms were in full, maturity. And of course, I live on Elmwood Avenue. And when I moved here, I've been here for 33 years, and I remember the stumps of the elm trees that had been cut years earlier were still, still there. You could see them, and it was kind of tragic that we've lost those beautiful elm trees. And I swear I've seen a couple of elm trees planted, one on the corner of Elmwood and Pearl, maybe. And then I've seen one down on St. Paul Street. So I was excited that I believe that there's a new species of elm that's disease resistant. And I'm hoping that there's some effort to replenish, to replant some of the elm trees or in and around Burlington, of course, specifically on Elmwood Avenue. But that was my comment. I've been trying to reach people separately about that. I'll pay for it if I need it. But I think the idea of replenishing the elms is a really good one. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just comment quick on that. We are planting a lot of elms. They're not necessarily American elm varieties because I'm not finding them to be resistant. They're Asian elm crosses, but we're planting a lot of them right now.
Okay, we're really running over. Polly, I see your hand. Can you make it quick?
So quick, I promise. Thank you. I'm really passionate about trees and I'm really excited to hear you're planting more. And I'm wondering how we could maybe bring this to the school board or to the superintendent as a way of getting neighborhood children involved of the caretaking of these trees. Like, I'm thinking this is just a great opportunity for them to have awareness about the trees in their neighborhood and how frequently they need to be watered and species. And have you reached out to the superintendent, or is that something you would like help with from the school board, where we could say, hey, in wards 2 and 3, we have a really cool opportunity here to like take care of our neighborhood?
Great idea. In the interest of time, Polly, please feel free to contact me and we can talk more about it. COVID is making things difficult right now to do any sort of an interaction with anybody. So, as we can see from this meeting tonight.
Well, we have learned that when we get a chance to have the city arborist here, we should give him a lot more than 10 minutes. There's lots of interest in what you do.
Happy to join you at any time. Please invite me back.
Okay, thanks.
Like a virtual adopt a tree thing for the kids.
There you go.
Step out of
Thank
my
you.
facilitator role to just say that not one of these looks like it's going to be in the downtown. And I was, if you have any plans for trees in the downtown, we would love to hear it.
Do you want me to comment on that quickly?
Sure.
We were just down there today fixing tree grates around some of these trees in the downtown core. I can tell you that is almost a losing battle when trees die to try to replant those tree pits. The soil volume in those tree pits is so minimal that it's very, very difficult under those conditions to grow healthy trees. What you see on St. Paul Street, the 2 blocks rebuilt of St. Paul Street, we incorporated new innovations underneath the paving where we provided up to 1,500 cubic feet of soil for each tree.
Wow.
With the use of these soil cells. So although the trees there, that's what needs to happen throughout the downtown core to really have healthy canopy where you have pits in the sidewalk and no greenbelt strip. And that's the long-term goal with these great street upgrades. So.
Okay, thanks for that answer and thanks for coming, and we'll definitely have you back.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night. So next we have John Vickery, I hope, the city assessor, to talk about citywide appraisals and what the new property valuations mean for you.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Vickery, the Burlington Assessor. Thank you for inviting me to speak before you. I'm going to talk about the citywide revaluation, which is underway right now, and we're getting very close to making it public with our new valuations. The last valuation reappraisal that we had was in 2005, effective 2006. So it's been many years. What I have is I have a presentation that we'll walk through that presentation, and then we'll take time I'll answer any questions that anybody has regarding our process, the new valuations, how to appeal, and that sort of thing. So if you don't mind, I'll pull up my presentation.
Okay, and if you could keep the whole thing with a Q&A to about 20 minutes, that would be great.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. See if I can figure this thing out. Here. Let's go. Get this thing. It's just going to take just a minute. Somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so does everybody see what's up on screen?
Yes, if you could make it larger, that would be great.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yep, I will. I just wanted to make sure that, there you go. How is that? Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. As I said, this is the Burlington Citywide Revaluation Project, the first one since 2005. We've had a fair amount of market change, especially as of late. The market in Burlington, here's a graph of the median home value in 2006. You'll see it at 295,000. And in 2021, it's projected to be 392,000. So we've had some incredible market appreciation, very similar to like 2006, 2007, 2008, in that period. We are doing this revaluation because it's mandated by the state tax department. And the reason why it's mandated is because we are not meeting, or we did not meet, statistical measures that the state requires, and as well as national guidelines of taxation equity. The purpose of the reappraisal is equity. It is to put values back at their market value, because that's the measure of equity. And over time, you lose that. You'll have certain types of properties that'll be undervalued and other properties that'll be overvalued. In other words, some folks may not be paying their fair share of the taxes while others are taking on that burden. That's the purpose of the revaluation. Our tables are outdated and they're being updated now. And I already mentioned that the last reappraisal project was done 15 years ago. The timeline, I want to put this out. We're going to send out change of valuation notice letters to all the property owners. There's approximately 11,000 property owners in Burlington, and that'll be either the 3rd or 4th week of March. Let's hope it's the 3rd week, but it might be the 4th week of March. The letters that we send out will have all the information that someone needs to do a review of their own property. It'll also give them information about how to meet with a Board of Assessor appraiser, and those meetings will be held virtually, just as this meeting is right now. Someone will be able to file their grievance or their appeal electronically, like the process that we've had currently for several years now. And then the meetings, because of COVID, will be held virtually for safety reasons. That'll be the entire month of April. In May and June, the team of the Tyler Technology Appraisal Division and my own staff will be doing reviews and will be resolving many appraisal issues. In July is when our tax bills come out. No change there, but that's the time frame from now until tax bills. A little bit of information. The new values will be based on current local real estate market as of April 1st, 2021. I'll introduce myself again. I'm John Vickery, the City Assessor. Tyler Technologies is conducting the general reappraisal, and Safeguard Organic Analytics are specialists in commercial property valuation, and we hired them because we thought that they could do a fantastic job. I told you about the letters that are coming out pretty soon. I want to encourage everyone to read the letter through, go onto our website and look at their property, which will be posted on the website so that they can gather information about their property. We want to make sure that information is correct. And then in addition to that, they can look at other folks' properties as a check to see if they are fairly assessed. And we've had property data on our website for over 10 years now. Many people are familiar with it. And it's a great resource, I think, for folks to look at their assessment in comparison to others. Our job is to make sure values are fair and equitable, And it starts off with having the correct information. So I believe about a year ago, we mailed out data mailers and asked people to send them in if they had a change, if they felt that we had some data that was incorrect. Well, that data should by now be in the system correct and updated to today's market value. But we want the public, this is the public process is coming in April, and we want public taxpayers, property owners to be involved in this process. If you are appealing your property value, it's really a three-step process. You would file your appeal electronically from our website, and the letter that we mail out will give that guidance. Step two, a Tyler Technologies administrator will email or call everyone that files electronically. And if you don't file electronically, you'll be able to call a 1-800 number. Step three is you'll be attending your hearing with an appraiser, a certified appraiser from Tyler Technologies, and or someone from our staff. And my entire staff are appraisers. That is my quick presentation, and will be delighted to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Okay, if you could stop the share screen, then I can see the group and see who has questions.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, that's still up. That's right, I gotta pull that down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the group? Thank you. Christy.
Yes, my curiosity, seeing this is now a good thing for one, that this appraisal is going on. How does this information impact the renters in the city of Burlington? Because I know one building next to another, one building may be dilapidated, that may affect the taxes or the value of the buildings surrounding it. So how does this affect the renters in the city of Burlington for reappraisal of property? You think that might possibly raise the rents?
Well, it would affect the tenants indirectly because they don't own the property, but they live in the property. So the valuations are based on the fair market value of a particular property. So if there is a property that is well kept compared to a property that is not well kept, the property that is in better shape will likely have a higher valuation because it's worth more in the open market. And therefore, the higher valuation would probably mean a higher tax amount. We did in 2015 and 2016, we did a revaluation to have apartment properties that were undervalued equalized to the level that other properties were appraised at, which was really important. And so the apartments overall have pretty darn good equity already. Now we're just bringing them to market.
The other question that I had was, how will reappraising these buildings affect the way that the city enforces the code of ordinances to make sure that property is maintained in habitable form so that they can actually, get better tax revenue out of the surrounding buildings?
Well, your question is a little bit difficult to answer because we're not code enforcement. Right. So the code enforcement office exercises their rules. They do have a process for where they've conducted inspections, and if a property is in good condition for the tenants, it gets fewer inspections, and that therefore they can focus their work on properties that are in not such great shape because they visit those properties more often. So, but that's a different city department. I hope that helps.
One last thing, could you please send me a copy of your report to the Burlington Tenants Union at gmail.com so that we can review this information?
Well, what we're going to be doing is we're still working on the property data right now.
Right.
So the reports is not ready, and it won't be ready for a little bit, but we are going to be putting out valuations. Our goal is to put it out before April 1st. And then we will post that information online, and you would be able to look at every single property online that way. It's not a book report like you think it is. It's the database gets every property is put online electronically.
Okay, thank you. I see Jacob and then Tony, and then we'll be out of time. We're already out of time, but that's okay. Jacob?
Thanks. Hey, I got two things. I'll start with my frustration one first. Is you mentioned that properties that are well maintained are going to have a higher value, and then they're going to get taxed more, which it seems frustrating to disincentivize our communities to not maintain their buildings. I understand it's probably because we want to tax who we think has more money to make it a progressive tax, which is great. Is there a way? Can we get a progressive property tax that doesn't disincentivize people maintaining their places? Yeah, so there's the first one.
Well, I always just want to tell it like it is, even if I agree with your sentiment, because you do want to, it would be nice to have a system that encourages people to improve their property, of course. The system that we have for evaluating of what they feel is a fair way to tax someone is based on value. And when you improve your property, it increases your value. So my office is just abiding by state law. Unless they change the rules in some way, we would valuate properties based on the law. So right now it's based on fair market value. And when a property is improved, it helps the value of that property.
Yeah, thank you. And I see a couple of senators and legislatures here. So if I tickled your brain at all, let me know. My second question is just more of a process thing. We got, I think we got a reassessment this summer, and then we got a reassessment 2 years prior to that. Is this going to be a new one on top of that, or if we got an assessment this summer, is that part of the same process?
No, it's a different process. We are doing a revaluation mandated by the state of Vermont to correct inequities of property valuations, which results in taxes. So this is putting all properties at an estimated fair market value as of April 1st, 2021. If you were assessed a year ago, or even 3 years ago, it was based on an earlier assessment, but it did recognize the new improvements you might have made, but it didn't bring your value to market value. It brought your market to the level of appraisal that other properties were at a year ago, or when you were reassessed.
Okay, thank you.
And I will clarify that if you'd like.
No, I think that makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. There's a few more hands.
Tony, briefly, please.
Yeah, John, I quickly took your median price for a single family home in 2006 and what it is today, or, in 2021. And it turns out there was a 33% increase. And 33% over is actually the same amount as the background inflation that we face. So in other words, there was no increase in real value. But I want to get at Christy Delphia's question from a different standpoint. What you didn't show, you showed ownership. Most Burlington doesn't own homes. We're all renters, most of us, and particularly in wards 2 and 3. And what you didn't show, I'd like to see a graph of a median middle apartment building that's 2 or 3 years old, sort of like the Redstone apartments up on North Winooski, or even the ones that look out over the lake, what that valuation was in, say, 2006, which is where we started, and what it is today, so that we that work and are concerned about how things are changing in wards 2 and 3 would have an understanding of, are rental properties, have they gone up more than, this is what Christy Delphi was asking, have their value gone up more than, say, ownership or less? And that would have obviously an impact on what the taxes are that the apartment that I'm living in right now would pay. Could you do that at some point?
I'll help you out right now. I actually love that question. And I'm sorry, Christy, maybe I needed a little more elaboration on that. The apartments were, when we ran tests before the whole project started, and we run the relationship between the market and the assessed values, the ratio for apartments overall was about 69%, 70%, right in that range there. So the change is going to be from that percent to 200% of market, which is right in line with the single family homes. They're very equitably assessed among those two property groups. So I think they'll see more of a level change of adjustment. And there, there's other sectors of the market that were around that, but not so tightly.
Yeah, just one last item is that during that same period, the Dow Jones went up 284%. So if you're going to put your money anywhere, apparently you would not put it into either a home ownership or even into rental housing. And the only question then would be, have incomes of, the average median income for a household in Burlington who rents, has that also increased roughly 30 to 33%? I'll take a look at that, but that answers my question, and it does at least say that the apartment pricing has not gone up beyond certainly beyond what the single family inflation has been over the last 15 to 16 years, from what you're indicating.
Okay, thank you. Oh, do you want to respond to that, John?
Yes, we had to readjust the apartments in 2015 because they were unequitably assessed. So their appreciation was actually, if we didn't do anything, their appreciation would have been a bigger adjustment. So the move that we made in 2015 was helpful on an equitable purpose, for equitable purposes, for basically for what landlords were underpaying. And now this adjustment is going to be more equally when it goes from the prior value to now. That makes sense?
The question is, my original question was, and what Christy was trying to get at, what was the value of the apartment, typical fairly new apartment in 2006? And what is it expected to be in 2021? So you can make a comparison whether, basically whether the value has gone up greater or less than, say, the median family house. That's the question.
Yeah, I can't answer that right now because you have fourplexes, you have 20 unit plexes. So I can't, if you told me what's the average fourplex or what's the average 10plex, I could dig into that and find that information for you. But I can't do it because they vary so much.
Right. I would say maybe a 10plex would be.
Yeah.
Tony, we don't have time for this level.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw your hand, Jean. Is it a quick question?
It's an addition to this. For example, when Jake and I'm saying sweat equity-wise, improve our homes as homeowners, we essentially up the market value. And therefore, all of the absentee landlords get to ask for more rent. And that is all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. Good comment. John, thank you very much for coming. It was very informative. I dread getting that letter in the mail, but I guess I'm going to get one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And put the word out. That would be really wonderful. And there is a process of review. So bear that in mind, everyone, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving right on, we're about 10 minutes behind schedule, but we have an embarrassment of riches. We have so many legislators and counselors and commissioners. It's really wonderful to see you all. Thank you for coming. We've made history. This is the first time we have had 5 out of 6 state senators wanting to appear before the NPA. So thank you for coming. And I'll call on each one of you. Maybe you can build off the previous one and be economical with your comments. The first one is Philip Ruth.
Hey, everybody. I will just give you a quick update on my 2 committees, Judiciary and Appropriations. In Judiciary, we've been continuing a lot of work under the heading of what we call Justice Reinvestment 2. So trying to reduce the amount we're spending on out-of-state prisoners, reinvest that money in programs to shorten people's probation periods, make sure they don't reoffend, et cetera. Transitional housing is a part of that. But in addition, trying to increase expungement and sealing as possibilities to make people's lives once they get out of prison more viable and allow them to earn the income that they deserve for their work. Then the last thing I'll mention there is we are going back at the cannabis legislation and trying to do some social equity work there, as well as strengthen the position of small growers in the new order for recreational cannabis. On appropriations, there you used the phrase an embarrassment of riches. You saw that President Biden just hours ago signed the American Rescue Plan. That's going to direct over $2.5 billion into the Vermont economy in one way or another, from unemployment and rental assistance to things like, hundreds of millions of dollars into the school system for increased HVAC work, PPE, all of the things that we need to allow students back in full time. By the way, I just helped to open the new school downtown, the AHS downtown. That was in part through a $3.5 million appropriation that we were able to move in advance of the budget. So that's just a little snapshot. There's a lot of other people. Happy to answer questions later.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have Tom Chittenden.
Thank you for having me tonight. So I'm Tom Chittenden. I live over in South Burlington. I serve on our city council here, and we're going through reappraisal in the city as well. So I can commiserate with all of you with the questions and the issues and questions that come up with that. I'm new to the Senate. I keep saying that, but it's certainly relevant and top of mind for me. I serve on transportation as well as Senate Ed. On transportation, we are very close to putting to the Senate floor new legislation that will allow zero emission vehicles to sell direct to consumer, effectively allowing companies like Tesla to be able to operate and service their vehicles here in the state. I think that's going to be a good piece of legislation. We're also looking at passing an e-bikes classification so that across the state, we have a common understanding of what a class 1, class 2, or class 3 ped assist e-bike is. So as to help municipalities be able to govern and structure different rules for those. We're also looking at allowing blue lights on fire apparatus as well as DMV changes and other things. Senate Ed is wrestling some topics that might be in the press more. We're going to move forward an implementation plan for Senator Baruth's great work on adjusting our weighting formula for how we calculate taxes and fund equitably schools. So that's something we are hoping to pass out of committee tomorrow, and I expect real progress on that in the years to come. We're looking at literacy programs, and then I'll be presenting, which is exciting for a new senator. I'll be reporting out my first bill next week, and I really hope the other senators on the call don't give me any grief. I hear there's sometimes hazing for new senators. I'm hoping that I will coast through this one, but it'll be on libraries, a library study committee, as well as some changes to the library language in our statutes. We'll be asking every public school in the state to provide free of charge in all bathrooms menstrual products to in that area. And then also we will, and part of that is to make it so that community liaisons, multicultural liaisons can be funded through municipal and school partnerships. I think I've used up more than a minute, and I will now turn it back to whoever is running this meeting. Thanks for having me tonight.
Hi, Tom. Nice to meet you. I'm Barbara McGrew. That's who's running the meeting. Thank you. I didn't see Ginny Lyons. Is she here?
Barbara, I don't know what order you have people in. It could be people who emailed you back. It's Senator Keisha Ram. I'm actually in my fiance's sugar house in Charlotte, and we're boiling syrup. And I just wondered if I could go next. Just so
yes, Keisha, you may.
Thank you. I apologize to others. Just finding a quiet space right now. First, I just want to thank Tom. Actually, he and I are both reporting our first bills tomorrow in the Senate. And I'm a co-sponsor of the Tesla-related bill, so really appreciate that moving. And I was the sponsor of the original bill around multicultural liaisons. So I will not give you a hard time tomorrow, Tom, and I'm grateful you're reporting that. I just wanted to add a couple other things. So I was a little bit late because I just got off the phone with Chairman Michael Sorokin. I'm not sure if he's with us. I can't see from my phone, but
he has not responded, so I assume he is not.
Well, I am happy to speak a little bit on behalf of Senate Economic Development, and he's probably not here because we are about to potentially vote out a major unemployment bill tomorrow, and he and I were just on the phone about it. We had the governor approach us about asking for rate relief for businesses, and we're absolutely happy to provide that, knowing that we had a $500 million cushion in our unemployment reserve fund, specifically for an emergency like the ongoing one that we've seen this past year. But it's really important to us that if we're helping our small businesses, we're also helping their employees who are still, unemployed, still at home, still waiting to hopefully get their jobs back. And so we've created a kind of second grand bargain since the Great Recession, acknowledging that often when you have a recession like this, it has a very long tail. And just because you get your job back, it doesn't mean you're not digging yourself out of pre-recession income levels and a deep financial hole. And so we've added provisions to increase the overall amount of state support for unemployment, as well as a provision that is an amendment of mine that I'm very proud of and attached to, that would allow for dependents, any families on unemployment with dependents, to get $50 extra a week in their unemployment. As folks may or may not know, Vermont has a 70% of unemployment rate for women. The people on unemployment, 70% are women. And most other states are maybe at 55-45 in what has been dubbed a she-cession because of women leaving the workforce. But Vermont is an incredible outlier. And a lot of that has to do with long-term effects in the economy of a lack of access to childcare and service industry jobs. And so we are just really trying to do everything we can to focus on those who would otherwise be most left behind in our unemployment system. We look forward to voting that out either tomorrow or shortly thereafter. And I just wanted to give people that update on unemployment, and appreciate you letting me jump the line a little bit.
Okay, Keisha, thanks for coming. Chris Pearson.
Thanks, Barbara. Good evening, everybody. Lots going on in the State House. This is a busy couple of weeks, but one of the things I'm the proudest of is that I've been working on is around school lunches. During the pandemic, we have, as a state, had universal lunches. So every school has just made every student eligible to get so-called free and reduced lunch. And any given year, we have about 70 of our schools. There's some 280 schools in Vermont that have free and reduced lunch for everybody, universal meals. We're taking advantage of this moment to see if we can't expand that to make every school have universal lunch, and pair that with an incentive to buy local products. The data is pretty stark. In a normal time, pre-pandemic, we had about 1 in 10 Vermonter expressing so-called food insecurity. So 1 in 10 Vermonter would self-report to being hungry. Now, the data suggests it's closer to 1 in 3 or 1 in 4. And this is not a dynamic that's going to evaporate, a month after the pandemic ends. So it's really scary. One of the most straightforward, we've done a lot of assistance for food banks and other strategies, but one of the most successful, enduring, and straightforward ways we can help our families is by getting good food into our schools, removing the stigma for students, not having some kids, punch in a card number while other kids are paying with cash. Just take all of that out of the equation for actually what ends up being fractions on the dollar of our overall school spending. So we're putting Vermont on a path, and this bill is advanced out of my committee, Senate Ag. I think it's coming out of Senate Ed, where Senator Chittenden and Senator Lyons sit tomorrow, and then it moves on. So it's underway. Puts us on a 5-year plan to get every student in the state covered by a universal meals program. And it also puts a local incentive, building on examples in Michigan and New York, Oregon, to get local food into schools. That has been really, really good to reverberate money around our local economy, get good produce, good quality food into schools, and create markets for farmers that are dependable. These are big institutions after all. So I'm really, really excited about that. There's a lot of momentum, and it seems like a good year for us to be able to take advantage of the great work our schools have done during the pandemic to get food into hungry bellies. So I'm really pleased on that one. It's S102.
S100.
S100. I should be able to remember that. So watch for that. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Is Ginny Lyons here? We thought she was going to be, but I don't see her on the list of participants. Okay, so I have to take it back. We only have 4 out of 6 and not 5 out of 6 senators. Thank you all for coming. Please stay for questions if you can. Okay, let me go to Vermont State House reps next. Jill, is Jill here? Jessica, do you see her on the list? I didn't.
No, Barbara, I don't see Jill today.
Okay. And what about Kurt McCormick? I know he's been ill, so.
He's not here either currently.
Okay. Next person is Brian.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Representative Brian Chena from the old North End. Yes. All right. And let's see. Let's talk about the legislature. It is crossover week. What is crossover week? Crossover week is the week where bills have to make it out of their policy committee in the House in order to survive the year. If they don't make it out by tomorrow, then they have to wait a year before action can, well, that's not true. We could take action on them and they'll just sit in the Rules Committee, but it's an important date to get bills out of policy committees. So all of the policy committees are working really hard. I will give you an update on my policy committee. In the House, we only have 1 committee that we're on. I'm on the healthcare committee, being a healthcare provider. They put me in the right place. And in the healthcare committee, we took a lot of testimony about the impact of the pandemic and about what we need to do. We made some recommendations on money, but not a lot of bills have passed out of the healthcare committee. However, there is one exciting bill that's on the way of passing out of the healthcare committee tomorrow, and it's called H210. It's an act relating to addressing health disparities and promoting health equity. And what the bill does is it creates and it gives funding to the Office of Racial Equity Director to assemble a health equity advisory commission to begin looking at the inequities in our healthcare system during the pandemic so that we can start to address them before the pandemic is over. And that commission is given a bunch of powers and duties looking at various aspects of the healthcare system, like training of providers, grants to be used, looking at data collection. There's more that the bill does. I don't need to tell you all the details, but the gist of it is that it's headed out of committee. It will probably pass and come over to the Senate. So we'll be looking to our senator friends to take up that bill and make sure it passes through. And it's a really important bill because something we've seen during this coronavirus pandemic is that the existing inequity and disparities in our social and economic system have been amplified by the pandemic. And so just a few numbers for you, that non-white Vermonters have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Nearly 1 in 5 COVID-19 cases in Vermont is a non-white Vermonter. And what is non-white? Well, that's how the data's aggregated or disaggregated. So I'm sorry to use that term, but it basically means BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So I'll say BIPOC moving forward. So nearly 1 in every 5 cases, nearly 1 in every 5, 20% is BIPOC. Yet only 6% of Vermonters are BIPOC. So that means 6% of Vermonters are BIPOC, 20% of people with COVID are BIPOC. That's a disparity, 3 times as much. So that's just one example of the many disparities we see in our healthcare system that exist. And hopefully this health equity bill will create a structure in the government. You know, eventually that commission will move over to the Department of Health when they can take that workload on after the pandemic. We're building a structure into the government to monitor health equity issues and to engage impacted communities. That commission has 20-something people from the Black community, the Indigenous community, people of color. It's also for LGBTQ people and for people with disabilities, because those groups also see a disparity. This commission will be advising the state moving forward. So as we come out of the pandemic, hopefully we can make some progress in the area of health equity. So that'll be my main update. There's something else I want to talk about, but I'm going to wait and see where this goes. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that because we have about 8 more people to talk, so maybe. But we'll be back to you. Please stay around. Celine?
Hello. Thanks so much, everybody. And let's see, I serve on the House Judiciary Committee, and we have a number of bills coming out this week for the deadline that Brian mentioned, and a lot of them have to do with equity in some form or another. So I'll just share maybe a little sampling what those are. Actually, today we had a bill that passed the House that bans the use of what's sometimes called the gay trans panic defense or the LGBTQ plus panic defense. I got to report that bill, which was really wonderful. And we sent it over to our colleagues in the Senate with a really strong vote. I think there were 4, maybe one person went on record voting against it, and a few others just simply did not vote. We also had a second reading today for a bill that clarifies court procedures, allowing judges to order relinquishment of firearms in domestic violence proceedings when emergency orders, or what are sometimes called relief from abuse orders, are being emergency relief from abuse orders are being issued, which is, there's a huge link between firearm homicides and domestic violence. And so, although this is already essentially something courts are able to do, it just clarifies it and makes it consistent across the state. We also just passed out of my committee today a bill that looks at, makes some very small modifications to how Vermont creates hate crime sentencing enhancements. So we've removed a word that created a slightly higher bar for folks to have to prove those kinds of crimes and motivations. And we're also trying to collect a great deal more data about the bias incidents that are being reported nationally in the state, so we can have clear, transparent local data about that. And I could go on and on. There's actually, we're trying to meet that crossover deadline and plowing a lot of bills out. The other thing I'll say unrelated to that is that we had in the House Progressive Caucus at the beginning of the week a really powerful conversation with a number of lawyers from Vermont Legal Aid who are working with folks on the front line of the crisis and who are trying to access benefits, and just were telling us about the many glitches and barriers that folks are continuing to face sometimes a year in, especially in our unemployment insurance system. So I and some of my colleagues are going to be pushing to have, we hope, something like a public hearing to really bring those stories forward and try to once and for all get more capacity for our UI system to actually help people out.
Thank you very much. Perhaps there'll be some questions in a little bit. Emma? Hi.
Barbara. Hi. Thanks, everyone. This is like hour 14 of my Zoom day, so I am going to try to say something articulate. So bear with me, folks. I just want to really just say hi. I've had children crawling all over me because we've been in quarantine this week, so it's been fun. Let's just real talk it. It's been super fun this week. I just want to really echo two very brief things and then tell you a little bit about House Commerce, which is my committee assignment in the House. I really want to just emphasize the gay trans panic defense bill is momentous, and I want to just echo Representative Taylor Small, who represents a small portion of Burlington. This is her first bill, and it passed through the House, and it is historic, and I'm very proud that we had nearly unanimous support from the House. So challenge on, Senate. I hope you pass it quickly and dutifully, because it is an important move for LGBTQ and human rights in Vermont. So that is a big one I want to just underline. And also the progressive caucus that Selena mentioned, I encourage you all to go and watch it if you're interested. It's less than an hour. You can find it on the Vermont Progressive Party Facebook page. And it's just so insightful. The folks at Vermont Legal Aid do serious, really compelling work for low-income Vermonters, but the byproduct of it impacts and benefits all Vermonters, because they're in the case of unemployment, so many Vermonters, 27, I believe, thousand Vermonters are still on unemployment, and it's only continuing. And there is some more policy work coming forward that Representative Rahm mentioned earlier, and will come to my committee. And I hope to do as much as possible to center workers, because there's been a lot for business in this session so far on pandemic relief, and we need to do a whole lot more for workers. So in that spirit, the biggest thing that our committee works on is basically a very large omnibus bill before crossover, which seems like everything in the kitchen sink goes into this economic development bill. And there's a couple of pieces I just want to highlight. If you can't sleep at night, you can find H159. It has a misnomer kind of label, because it is called Better Places, which is one piece of probably 10 different policy ideas in this massive bill. But I just want to highlight around the theme of equity. I've been working hard on the aspect around resourcing and centering BIPOC business development and economic well-being for BIPOC folks in the state. And it's towards the end of the bill if you want to look it up on the legislative website. But it's a first-time thing for the Agency of Commerce and Community Development to intentionally fund two things. One would be money for BIPOC community leaders to come together and figure out how to create a system that works for them. The system now is very much built to benefit white folks, white Vermonters, white business owners, et cetera. So it's a resourcing to seed the seed, if you will, an effort to state what is needed to support BIPOC businesses, and then hopefully springboard a few years of further funding for BIPOC communities to help them do startups, help them expand, help them be able to get a customer base, marketing, et cetera. The second portion of that is to create a new position within ACCD. I know the governor doesn't like creating new positions, but it's about time that we at minimum dedicate a staffer who would be informed and an expert on BIPOC business needs, and from inside state government, really up the state's game, frankly, on being responsive and pointing out points of bias with all the various nonprofits and business agencies that sort of do work around the state that are not for the part of the state but get funded and partner with the state, as well as doing technical support and helping with contract procurement for state and federal contracts, et cetera. The list goes on. So you can find that in the bill. That part's gonna pass. I'm very proud of that, because I didn't know if anyone on the committee would even be interested in that concept. So look for more soon, but really trying to up the equity conversation within House Commerce. I hope that made sense. I am so tired today. So thanks all for hanging in there. I know this is a long NPA meeting. This is my favorite NPA. Don't tell wards 4 and 7, but appreciate that. And I'll try to stay on for questions, but folks can always email me and find information on the legislative website in terms of contacting me. Thanks all.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, I'd like to move on to City Council. I'm going to go in reverse alphabetical order this time. So Brian. Fine. Hi.
I like that. I'm sort of in the middle. I think I get to go second no matter what, but that's okay. No. The items I'll cover real quickly. Charter changes, they all passed with flying colors. It was really quite inspiring for those of us who liked them all. So I'll just quickly touch on Airport Commission expanded by one from Winooski, one more from Burlington added to that group to get it to an odd number, keep it at an odd number of 7. The thermal energy question is, rather than summarize the question, I'll just say the thermal energy question, ranked choice voting, just cause eviction, and the airport question all get essentially brought through the legislative process because they will be either one package bill or individual bills, depending on the best way to advance them through the legislative process that our delegation will discuss among themselves and figure out what is the best way to bring those forward. So stay tuned. There will be no action of any substance, perhaps you would say, in this session, other than maybe some committee hearings. It will have missed crossover, so none of the charter changes will meet crossover, which means they need to be brought back through the process in the next half of the biennium. So that means next January. But we can do a lot of groundwork to get these in a good position so that they're well resourced, we have all the information needed to advance them and also determine the best strategy to ensure they get through the legislature, come back to Burlington with as few changes as possible, since that's what Burlington wants, and the voters of Burlington, you overwhelmingly approve these. So we'll let you know how you can be involved. There will be a place for people to engage in this process, but right now we need to sort of respect the legislative process that we need to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. You're right. You should have been in the middle, but my list is screwed up. So Max.
Sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So a couple things we're kind of in between in terms of our council. This is kind of the part where we have a new councils yet to be sworn in. We have one more meeting with this council, and then we'll all have organization day again on the 5th of April, which is when the new council is sworn in and the State of the City address is given. I just want to thank everybody for participating in the election. Certainly didn't go my way, and it was frustrating to have it be as close as it was. But I just really appreciate all the support I felt, especially from this neighborhood and from the Old North End, and just the way that people showed up was absolutely incredible. So that was just something that I wanted to just relay to everybody, and just thank you all for the support, and really appreciated just everything that you all have done over the years to support me in the context of this NPA. So I just wanted to thank you for that. In terms of the council, 2 things I'll touch on briefly. At our last council meeting, we had a first reading of an ordinance change that I think will be helpful both in terms of addressing our climate goals as a city, and specifically reducing carbon emissions related to heating and cooling. As we talked about, as has been discussed in this meeting, so much of our city are rental units, and older ones at that. And so what the council has done is start the adoption process, and a process that will continue and culminate at the next meeting, to mandate weatherization of rental properties. This sets a standard across rental properties, and as well as an implementation schedule, starting with the properties that we have reason to believe have the least level of efficiency to them, so the leakiest properties, if you will. And then then over time they'll get phased in, so that additional properties are covered. There are certain provisions within the ordinance, so things like that, that there's a cap in terms of spending on the property owner's part to $2,500. That doesn't include any subsidy that they would receive, so that could actually be far greater, given all the different incentive programs that Vermont has. So this is just really a way for us to move towards requiring folks to do weatherization on properties in a much more expeditious fashion, replacing what was a prior ordinance that required that work to take place at the time of sale, which oftentimes, given how some properties really don't turn over, would really be very seldom. So that's I think a meaningful improvement, something that's going to be exciting. The other piece that I do want to also touch on is just the city budget. That will be something that the new council will be diving into relatively quickly. With the federal stimulus, Burlington is estimated to receive about $19 million from what I understand at this point, which will take a very challenging budget and make it a lot more manageable. Burlington has about a $6 million budget shortfall. That comes largely from decreases in some of our largest revenue categories, though not the largest, that being property taxes, where people have continued to pay on time and have continued to just pay in general, but rather other areas of the city budget like rooms and meals tax, so restaurant meals and hotels, local option taxes, and then there were some other revenue sources that or taxes that we chose not to implement this year, namely an increase to the housing trust fund, as well as an increase to a public safety tax to fund the ambulances in the new North End. And so this will take that budget and make it, I think, a lot more manageable. One thing that I'm going to be interested to understand is the degree of flexibility that we have with that and the degree to which we're able to actually solicit community feedback in that. From what I generally understand about it is that we will have greater flexibility to a certain degree than, I guess, previous rounds of stimulus. So I'm hoping that that will create opportunities for the city to really deploy that in different ways than we have thus far, and to really also include the community more in that decision-making process around how some of that is spent, if in fact we do end up having more than we need to cover the shortfall, which it looks like, again, that will be the case. So that's a much better position for us to be in than we otherwise thought we might be.
Okay, thanks, Max. Perry?
Yes, thank you, Barbara. I wanted to give an update on a few of the items around sort of policing and police transformation that have been going on. Specifically, I just wanted to touch quickly on oversight. I've basically, this is the more, I don't know if frustrating is the right word. I don't love giving like a non-update update where the update is just that there's not really an update, but that's what this is sort of turned into. I did have some communication from the mayor's office that they were going to be bringing something forward for the council meeting on the 8th and then again on the 22nd. Once that got pushed back, this has been pushed back several times. I haven't seen anything, so I'm still just waiting for information on that. I think there are certainly folks in our progressive caucus who are interested in continuing to work on this, and there are community groups that are still meeting around it, and I anticipate that will be coming to the NPAs, continuing to be sort of brought up at, sort of through sort of the policy channels, but right now it just feels a little bit stalled out. So it's sort of in a wait and see moment. And are folks familiar with Talitha, the public engagement consultant? So
she's going to appear at a subsequent meeting.
Right. So there are two consultants that we're working with around sort of the police transformation issue. One is a public engagement consultant, and then which is Talitha, and then the other is CNA, which is doing more of like the audit and assessment of the department. And that contract is also kind of in like a limbo stage right now. So it hasn't been finalized, at least that's the most recent update that I've gotten. And so still working through that. But Talitha has started the public engagement process. There were stakeholder meetings on February 23rd and 25th with a whole bunch of organizations, and I'll throw all the orgs that participated in the chat in a second. It was about 24 organizations participated in those, and then they were at the 1-8 meeting on yesterday. And then I have the list of the other, they'll be at 4 and 7 on March 24th. They're going to be at the Ward 5 meeting on April 5th. And I believe they're coming to the April meeting for Wards 2 and 3. Does that tentatively sound correct to steering committee members?
I'm not sure. We're maybe talking about having a special meeting, I think, for them. We'll see.
Okay. So yeah, so that is an opportunity for the public to continue to engage on this issue. I think some of what we saw when as we've been having a lot of these conversations, people just felt like they wanted more opportunities to give input and also have that be a more sort of clear process. And so that's really where Talitha is stepping in and working with the city. So there's the stakeholder workshops, there's the NPA meetings, and then there also will be at some point a public survey that's generated. And so I'm looking forward to that. I did go to both of the stakeholder workshops. I did not get a chance to go to the NPA meeting yesterday, but I'll chat with one of the East District counselors to hear how that went. But I won't I think, and also I should wrap up, but I'll hold my thoughts basically on the process until the process is over, but I'm excited that they'll be coming to the NPA shortly. So that's
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. It's now 8:45. We were supposed to have ended at 8:30, and our school commissioners have been waiting patiently to talk to us. So I hope that we can go to 9. Is that okay with everybody? Thanks. Okay, so are all three of you going to speak, or do you have?
I'm going to go.
Okay, Jean.
Barbara, I want to go really quick.
Okay.
I don't want to give an update, but having been a part of the Vermont Coalition for Equity in Education, which is a statewide effort to support updating the weighted pupil. I'm looking at Senator Chittenden nod his head, and what I want to say is thank you to you. And also, I'm bummed that Philip left early, but I'm thanking our senators right now for supporting S13, and I hope that our House reps look forward to hearing from me in supporting it after crossover. And that's all. Keeping it short.
Okay, thank you.
Keeping Barbara happy.
Yeah, so who's going to talk next?
I'll go very quickly also.
Go, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay. I just also want to thank everyone for the work that they did voting for the school budget. We had a tremendous output again of support, which it makes me proud of being a Burlingtonian, because in the many years I've been here, the citizens have almost every single time supported the school budget. And it's really a statement for the community support and the involvement of Burlington into the school system. But in particular, and again, I'm going to go really quickly. The downtown opening was really fantastic. Jill Korinsky and Phil Baruth were there, among many other dignitaries for the city. The school is up and functioning. There was a question last meeting about the COVID protocol for the downtown, and I just want to clarify what that is. The kids come and their temperatures are taken when they arrive. They go to their classes, and that when they leave, they don't come back. So there's no coming and going throughout the day. Parents are responsible for making sure that the kids are arriving to school healthy, and there are a couple of different entrances for the building right now. There have been complaints about the noise that's going on the inside, and we heard last night, 2 nights ago on Tuesday, that there are some mitigation factors that could come into play as we continue to get funding from the state and federal levels about for education. But there's so much information going on right now. I'll stop there. I just wanted to update people on that COVID protocol, and then maybe Polly has something to say as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Polly, do you have something to add?
Nope, just thanks for supporting the budget, and so excited about downtown BHS, and stay tuned about the future of our high school.
Okay, thank you. So the floor is open for questions to any of our legislators or commissioners and counselors. And hopefully Jessica can help me recognize people, because I can't see everybody.
There's a hand up from Jacob.
Jacob, go ahead.
He's raising a hand so much. First thing is I heard Senator Chittenden talk about e-bikes, and I've been thinking about alternative transportation, and I've recently realized that we have different rules for 2 3-wheeled vehicles versus 4-wheeled vehicles. And I'm trying to get up to speed on that. And I've been seeing, we talk about bikes a lot, but I've been seeing, you know, electric wheelchairs. I even saw a go-kart park in front of the hardware store the other day. So I just really want to advocate. I love this work, and I really want to advocate for making us think about our roads differently and trying to allow a lot more of these alternative means of transportation. The other thing I want to touch on is, I don't know if you guys heard, we had the city assessor here, and there was a little discussion about how can we have a progressive property tax, but that doesn't discourage people from working and fixing up their buildings, because the property tax is based on valuation. So if you fix up your apartment building or your house, you're going to have a higher tax. So I just wanted to plug that into your ears and see if you guys have any thoughts about that.
Do you have, you want to direct it to somebody specific?
That's hard. Sorry, there's a lot of you. If anybody's really passionate about it, that would be great, but yeah, sorry.
Okay. It seems to me it's maybe the city councilors that have something to do with the code, both code enforcement and people upgrading their properties versus being taxed more for doing so.
And also Selena, I think I don't know if Selena wanted to jump in.
Okay. I'm not seeing everybody, so I can't see who wants to. Oh,
I would.
Right? Oh, all right.
Oh, Selena, I want you to go first.
I'm sure there's multiple people, but I just wanted to make sure that you saw Selena, Barbara.
Okay, Celine, do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, and I would just, and maybe Senator Pearson does too, because I know he's worked on this issue a lot, but I think the way to get to that progressive education funding model that I think I heard you ask for is to start to shift away from using property and to look at income and asking folks to pay a percentage of their income. So we're not, you know, putting all the burden on the low and especially like middle income folks, but that we're asking people to proportionally support and equitably support our education system. And I know Senator Pearson has introduced a bunch of legislation on that in the past. I have Rep. Vihovsky and Cordes have been working on a bill to implement some recommendations from a recent tax commission study along these lines, working with public assets and the Vermont NEA and others. So there continues to be interest in this at the state level.
Thank you. Brian, did you want to weigh in on this? Hi.
Yeah, there is some exciting work happening as well. And maybe Selena was referring to this as well. I just want to mention Deb Brighton did a pretty amazing piece of work around how we can shift away from a tax that really does kind of discourage and penalize people for improving and maintaining their properties, doing what we want them to do, and instead shifts more to one that essentially taxes owners who hold property for sort of building its speculative value, hoping that down the road, they're going to reap a great big benefit from that. And so that's not really doing justice to what that report says, but that's basically how I understood this new way of thinking about how to fund both schools and municipal services. In the last 40 years, Burlington has built alternatives to the property tax as a way to move away from this, but we haven't been able to do enough because state controls what municipalities can do, and we have not succeeded in moving further away from a very regressive tax system, which doesn't reflect ability to pay, but reflects just what you happen to own and assumes you, therefore you then have the ability to pay, which is just completely a flawed model.
Thank you. Chris?
I'll just say quickly that there was, as folks have referenced, this study committee that was independent of legislators that came out and said this is a good way to go. It's a big lift, right, for us to do in the middle of everything. So what I'm pushing for, and I don't know if I'll succeed yet, is to give the finance committee, it's a tax committee in the Senate, among others, some ability to meet over the summer and fall and see if we can't hammer out some of the details here and bring it back next year. I'm really eager for us to take advantage of this work that is a little different from a few of us legislators pushing it forward and people dismiss us for whatever reason. But so I'm hopeful. Sometimes historically, these kinds of reports have taken a few years to get into law. Mostly though, over time, they do get borne out. So there's fresh reason to hope.
Thank you. Who else has a question?
Christy has a question, Barbara.
Okay, Christy, we have 5 minutes.
Okay, so this is kind of a preemptive strike to just cause evictions when it comes out, even though I know this is still a little ways away. It goes to the enforcement section of just cause when it comes back to the charter. As we know, code enforcement is notoriously horrible to tenants in the city of Burlington. So we were looking at maybe improving the Housing Board of Review as a way to kind of sidetrack from the enforcement issue of this when it comes back to Burlington to be written as a charter. How much of a possibility would it be to improve the Housing Board of Review to substantially help with the code enforcement issues, so the way they treat tenants in the city of Burlington?
Anybody want to take that on?
I think I'll attempt it, Christy. I think what I'm hearing you speak about, we've talked about before, and I think it merits much further conversation about what we can do to give tenants more direct access to an appeal process, really is what you're asking for, I think. And a body that will hear the case when you feel that code enforcement has not lived up to their obligation. Is that fair?
Well, it's more along the lines of improving the Housing Board of Review and giving it more powers to force code enforcement to do their job in recognizing and enforcing the code ordinances. Because right now they do a very horrible job and they treat tenants like absolute dirt. And we need to stop that from happening because they're not fining the landlords for not keeping their buildings up to code. And we think the Housing Board of Review can be improved to the point where they would have more powers to force code enforcement to do their jobs correctly, basically.
I think it's something we have to take as a council to spend some time on and find out what we could do in that respect, because we do have a Housing Board of Review, which is, I think, even in our charter. So we do need to look at what those duties are and whether we can expand them and put a little bit more teeth into the process. We do have a new department, permitting inspections, which also has no appeal process, by the way, for a property owner who's going to do a project and feels that the code, shall we say, the inspector is overextending their reach. Right now, there's really nothing other than to complain to the director, but there's no appeal body. So that's something I was just reminded by property owners today. We're going through a very difficult experience with our building inspection system, that you need to have a way for citizens to have recourse or redress, at least ability to appeal. And that's an issue that we have to grapple with as well. But I'll work with you on that for sure.
We have Solveig and then Brian left.
Okay, if people want to stay, I'm happy to recognize them. Solveig?
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to comment on Jacob's question about various different modes of transportation and bicycles, and the Public Works Commission at their last meeting, actually, it's in the consent agenda, so it's buried, but we discussed ordinance changes to add quite a few varieties of different mobility definitions to the city ordinance. So that's available at page 12 if you want to look at the packet of materials that were put out and discussed at the Public Works Commission meeting February 17th. So it's quite interesting, the names that we came up with. So I just wanted to share that information with people if they're interested in that. So thank you.
Thank you, Solveig. Who else, Patrick, did you say?
Well, we have Brian here.
Hi, I just have something to add based on the conversation. So I've discovered something that doesn't seem to be widely known. about charter changes. It was thought, it had been said recently in city council meetings that, you know, these charter changes have to wait a year. But I discovered just recently that in the House, bills relating to charters are exempt from deadlines. And I discovered this because I was working on a different charter change issue. So that means that our city charter changes do not have to wait until next year. It doesn't mean they're going to happen this year, but it means they don't have to wait. So I think the Burlington delegation, we are planning on meeting and strategizing. So we will take that into account as we move forward. But I just wanted people to know, because I think now that I know that, we need to get that out there, because certain people were using that as an argument, saying, oh, we can't do this thing, it'll never happen before crossover. Well, guess what? You're wrong. So now let's all, you know, and I was wrong because I thought it was true too. So you live and you learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Other comments? Okay,
I would like to say it's really nice to see all our senators, and I hope that the redistricting doesn't affect our current lot of senators too much, because they are awful nice to have local.
Well, I'll say that and say it for all of the legislators that appear tonight, from the city to the school board to the House to the Senate. Thank you for appearing. I do have one comment for Steve Carey. I appreciate the COVID protocols that you outlined. However, students are, there's a lot of asymptomatic spreading of the virus. Taking temperatures and having parents say they're healthy is not enough. There are plenty of tests around. I think the kids should be tested weekly at least. So I just had my second vaccine, so I'll be okay, but they're coming into the downtown and they should be tested.
Hey, Barbara, I have one last announcement that I almost forgot, and someone just texted me and asked me if I would please make it quickly.
Okay, please do.
Speaking of charter changes, some of you may have heard of the Proposition Zero campaign that's happening in Burlington. Proposition Zero campaign is an effort to change the charter of the city of Burlington to have binding ballot items and recalls of elected officials on the local level. So tomorrow night, there's going to be like a webinar event where we're going to talk about this concept, and we're going to try out some different polling, and we're going to hear from, I think, the tenants union and the Battery Park movement and some others about their concerns. But ultimately, it's about how to create more direct. One of the topics is going to be how to increase the power of the NPAs. So if people are interested, Infinite Colclasure is going to be posting on social media the information. I don't have it available right now, but it's tomorrow night from 7 to 8 p.m. And please, he couldn't make it tonight, but please feel free to join us if you're interested. Thank you.
That's an important announcement. Thank you very much. And with that, are people ready to adjourn? Seeing no objection, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Just before everybody splits, real quick. The proposition, you can find that link to that video for tomorrow night for the Proposition Zero on, it's spelled out propositionzero.org.
Thank you.
That meeting on that link.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Bye, everyone. Love you. Bye.
Good night.
Later.
Good night.
Barbara, thank you.